Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us for our practice today. Our practice today has the theme of Saucha, which is one of the niyamas in yogic philosophy, and it translates to this word purity. So throughout our practice physically, our theme of purity will show itself in a lot of different twists. In terms of more energetically and intentionally, our practice of purity will focus more on finding integrity in present moment awareness. So we're going to try to move with awareness of how we feel, how we might need to move for our own unique anatomy, and find ourselves focusing on the here and now rather than whatever's happening on and off the mat. With that being said, I invite you to find a comfortable seat. You don't necessarily need any props, although I do have a block that I'm currently sat on that might potentially be useful for a couple of our poses if we need to bring the ground up to us. Amazing. Finding our comfortable seat whenever we're ready. Maybe closing the eyes or softening the gaze past the nose. To allow ourselves to take a moment to arrive. Our practice of Saucha starts now with allowing ourselves to leave whatever happened before at the door. Not worry about what's going to come after this practice. Maybe we find that when we're more aware of this moment, that we become aware of the ebb and flow of our breath. Perhaps we realize whether our comfortable seat is actually as comfortable as we once thought. Feeling free to make any adjustments we may need to make, but not seeing these things that we may need to adjust as imperfections. Nothing is good or bad, it just merely is. Sitting with the natural flow of our breath, which I invite you to return to if the pranayama that I am about to guide us through doesn't suit you. So a suitable breath work for our theme today would be cleansing and clearing breath. You may, of course, keep the eyes closed, gaze soft, unless you need to use me for reference. I'll place my hand on my belly so that you can see the actions that my belly and abdomen are taking when I do this breath as a demonstration. So cleansing and clearing breath is said to build heat in the body. I also find that I feel energy running around my body, or like maybe little tingling sensations once I've sat after completing this breathwork practice. It can potentially make people feel a little bit dizzy. So if that is the case, feel free to come back to a normal flow of breath while we're completing cleansing and clearing. So with cleansing and clearing breath, our inhale initially is a normal full inhale in, and the exhale is a short, sharp, forceful exhale that will lead the abdomen on an inhale to naturally rebound. So it's inhale in. And you may notice that when I do the sharp exhale out, it was a natural occurrence for my belly to then re-inflate. It's a really strange example. You know how I love them. I don't know if anyone's ever had those self-inflating whoopee cushions. So when someone sits on it with a force of sitting down and it deflates with a short, sharp, obviously, farting sound, they naturally then rebound back to fill up. For the next victim. This is what's happening when we're doing our cleansing and clearing breath. It's a sharp exhale, so sharp and forceful that naturally the belly then inflates again for you to again. And You can, I obviously demonstrated through my mouth. I tend to do this in and out through the nose. If we have any issues with a cold or anything, and it might be that that's not suitable. But we'll take our hand to our belly maybe as a guide. We'll take a normal breath in and out. And after our next inhale, we'll begin. When you kind of run out of steam, you can inhale in again. Knowing that as you're continuing this round, if you do need to take a reset breath and start again, that is perfectly normal and natural, as breathwork is a practice. And you can also slow down the cadence or speed up the cadence of the breath. Maybe finding a count of 10. And whenever we're ready, finishing off the current round, placing the hands down on the lap or in the lap, and taking a moment just to notice how the breath work sits. Affording ourselves some slow steadiness in our practice to acknowledge the effects, the sensations, the energy moving within us. Whenever we're ready, we'll take our fingertips to our shoulders and start to find a side-to-side movement, a twist. So I tend to inhale in and exhale, twist towards the right, and then follow a flow of breath as we go from side to side. It doesn't necessarily have to match up with when you move from one side to the other or come to center in terms of the inhales and exhales, because we will all have a slightly different rhythm that suits us. Trying to keep the elbows roughly as high as the shoulders. And noticing that having the fingertips on the shoulders themselves means that we have more of this integrity in where we twist from. So we're finding that we're twisting more from the upper middle back rather than trying to extend the twist just by opening up along the fronts of the pecs. Finding a dynamic movement to work into our active rotational capacity. Beginning to slow ourselves down, still keeping the hands lifted, but this time taking the fingertips to the sternum. So the sternum here, there is an acupressure point that has been named the Sea of Tranquility. So it's known that if you tap here, you receive potentially the benefits of moving or shifting stuck energy in this place. All to do with traditional Chinese medicine and philosophy. We're going to slow our tapping down, still keep the elbows high. And we'll find that we open up our right hand to the side, and when we bring the fingertips back, it's a tap, left hand to the side, bring it back, tap. And we'll start to do this movement back and forth, whatever cadence, rhythm suits you, but finding another way to stimulate this particular acupressure point. It might be that as we're moving, we start to feel that the arms are getting tired. And when we're ready, we might introduce a little bit of a twist, opening up to the sides. This is another move that could be paired with cleansing and clearing breath. The short, sharp exhale, either as we return to center or on each expansion. I'll continue to breathe normally for this specific practice. Coming back through center. Whenever we feel we've evened out, we're going to inhale and reach the fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, twist towards your right. Inhaling, fingertips to the sky. Exhale, twist towards your left, maybe bringing the hands down to gently rest. Inhaling up, hands down to the right. Inhaling up, hands to the left. We'll continue this for a few more rounds. Finding again that dynamic twisting movement. And the next time that you find that you're twisted towards the right, here is where we're going to find more of a passive twist. But don't be fooled, even in this passive twist where we're using our hands as levers, because we're using them as levers, they are going to be very strong in guiding us into our twist. Using the breath here, inhaling to think of rising up through the crown, grounding down through the sit bones. And using the exhales to see if we can find a bit more space to twist into. Trying to move from the center first and then maybe allowing ourselves to turn our gaze towards more behind us. Maybe even taking the gaze out into the corners of the right-hand side of the eyes. Our next inhale in, we'll take the fingertips back up towards the sky, and exhale, twist to our left, finding here our more passive twist. Passive doesn't mean that we're not being strong. If anything, you'll find again a lot of strength in the arms. Using the hand behind us as a second spine to help find that upright quality in our seat as we twist around our center. Excellent. Inhaling the fingertips up. This time, as we exhale, we're going to take our left hand to the top of the right thigh. The right palm's going to come down beside us on the right hand side with the palm facing up. Look over towards your right. Scoop the right hand up and over. So this is like, I call it like the baby of a seated twist and a side lean. So potentially getting more, not just directly along the sideline of the body, but kind of across the front of the right-hand side of the rib cage. And finding a back bend, a slight twist, and some lateral flexion. Amazing. Bringing ourselves up, swapping out now so that the right hand is on top of the left thigh, left palm faced up beside us, scooping up and over while looking over towards the left. Noticing where we feel the sensation. Bringing ourselves back through center. We're going to find our way next onto all fours. So in our all fours position, we've got wrists roughly underneath the shoulders, knees roughly underneath the hips. And we'll find just a little movement in some circles just to get used to now being in this place rather than on our sit bones. So notice the parts of the body that are firmly pressed against the ground, maybe less firmly placed against the ground, nowhere near the earth. And particularly when you're moving in circles, you might notice that the weight distribution changes. Or if the hips knock out to the side, do we feel a stretch along the sideline of the hips themselves? And coming back to a neutral spine. So neutral not being our cow pose or a cat pose, finding somewhere in between with the crown of the head reaching forward, the tailbone reaching back. When we're ready, we're going to take our right leg first, and I slightly tuck the toes under. So I've got more of this, I call it a stompy right foot. We're going to keep the bend in the right knee, but we're going to move the leg so it's like you're stomping the right foot on the ceiling above. And we're going to try and do the stomping action without moving the rest of the body. Maybe a couple of pulses of kicking, guiding with the heel first up towards the sky. Wake up the stabilizing muscles around the hips. We'll find stillness and begin to open up the leg to the side. My classic example of what this is meant to look like is like dog weeing on a fire hydrant. But keep going with the right knee in the direction of the right arm. Then we're going to forcefully send the right foot back as if it's trying to stomp on the wall behind us this time. Straight right leg. Bend the knee, stomp your foot towards the ceiling, open up the hip, dog weeing on a fire hydrant, and start to draw the right knee towards the right arm. Send it back. Straight, strong leg. Straight is relative. And bend the knee, foot towards the ceiling, open up towards the side, knee tracking towards its associated arm. One more time, straightening out, opening up, hugging in towards the side, and pushing back, allowing the leg to come down. Knee comes underneath the hip. If we find that the wrists get niggly, we can always come onto forearms. That does help to stabilize the movement of the pelvis here, or we can come onto fists. To the other side, we're going to now take our left foot, stomping towards the ceiling. The height doesn't matter as long as we keep this integrity in our neutral spine. Find a couple little kicks up towards the sky. And the real present moment awareness here is trying to keep the rest of the body still, but have the movement come from the hip, and then we'll find that the side body is engaged here too. So we're going to start to open up dog weeing on a fire hydrant, draw the left knee in the direction of the left arm, and then we'll send it straight back, kicking the stompy foot back towards the wall behind us. Bending the knee, opening up dog weeing on fire hydrant, knee towards the left arm, kicking straight back. I find that the slower I move here, the more meticulous I can be in terms of my movements. And I can ensure, or at least believe, that I'm not shifting so much in other parts of my body. One more time. And release. It might be for a moment you come to sit back on the heels, just to give the wrists a little bit of a break. I really enjoy taking the backs of the palms together, and you're going to kind of roll around on the edges of the hands to turn the fingers in towards you, come towards the outside edge of both pinkies, then draw the inside wrist with the bottom of the palm together like a little lotus shape. The thumbs come to touch. You're rolling around so that the backs of the wrists meet. So you're finding this nice circular movement where you keep the hands connected at all times, but in a different position on the hands or the wrists. I think there is a beautiful name for this in terms of the opening up of the flower. We'll have to look that up later. Awesome. When we're ready, we'll come back to all fours. Perfect. So in all fours, next we're going to extend the right leg behind and curl the right toes under. You might take a little moment to find a nice little rocking back and forth, pushing back through the heel. And then we'll find stillness, coming onto the top of the foot this time. Sometimes I like to be on fingertips for this, or you can have the palms down. And we're going to, essentially it's kind of called like flushing out the joint if you're familiar with Katona yoga, where we're going to roll around, similar to what we did with the wrists, but it's going to be the foot and the floor, where we roll through the ankle, the feet. So I'm kind of coming on the inside of the foot, the top of the foot, the outside edge of the foot, round onto the ball of the foot. And it just finds this nice fluid movement working into the ankle joint and the foot. You can go in any direction you choose. Maybe you swap it out to the other side. It doesn't have to look a specific way. It can be quite nice to find a little bit of awareness to that particular joint and space. How often do we pay attention to our ankles? Amazing. Now coming back so that we've got the toes tucked under. We're going to place the right hand firmly down and inhale the left fingertips up towards the sky to find a twist. Pressing firmly down through the base of the right hand, the right thumb. Taking another breath here. Releasing both hands down towards the ground, and we'll bring the right knee back under. Extending the left leg long this time. We'll find our little rock back and forth. Stillness once more to come onto the top of the foot and find our flushing out movement. We're just circling around on the top of the foot, the sides of the foot, the balls of the foot. I tend to find I do a little swaying back and forth. So here, it's not the goal to keep the rest of the body still. Allow the rest of the body to move in whatever way facilitates this motion or this movement within the ankle and the foot. Awesome. Coming back to having the left toes tucked under. Firmly plant the left hand. Inhale in to peel the right fingertips towards the sky. You might be looking out, or you might be looking more in the direction of the inside of that right elbow or the right thumb. Being strong in our foundations, noticing what parts of the body are firmly in contact with the floor. Releasing the right hand back down to the earth and the knee, the left knee underneath the hip. One more thing to work into the wrists. I'm going to scoot back a little bit just so I don't hit the radiator in front of me. We're going to take a measure of our hands being underneath our shoulders by turning the fingertips in to face towards one another and finding that the middle fingers touch. When the middle fingers touch, you're going to pivot on the base of the palms and place the fingertips back facing forward. So you found your shoulder width distance. We're going to think of the right hand, or look at the right hand. Think of the direction that the fingers are facing. That's the direction the hand is going to move. So left hand's going to stay planted. Right hand, follow the direction of the fingertips, reaching the hand forward, up, back, round. When we come around, we're flipping the fingertips backwards so that the wrists are in line with one another, but left fingertips forward, right fingertips back. Sometimes it's nice to do a couple little circles here to get into this space. And please know that this can be quite a strong movement. Sometimes I like to move my knees a little bit closer to my hands, or there are alternatives sitting back on the heels and just drawing the tops of the fingertips closer towards the body. Awesome. When we're ready, remembering again, right hand's going to move, right fingertips in the direction they're facing. So this time they're going to go back the way they came to come back and face forward. We're going to try this on the left. So look at the left fingertips. They're facing forward. Take the arm forward, up, round, back. So that when the left hand plants back towards the ground, you've got the fingertips facing behind, right fingertips facing forward. Potentially, again, taking a couple little circles here. Potentially a rocking movement if circles doesn't quite work for you. Amazing. Returning the hand to where it came from. The fingertips are pointing back, so going back the way you came to bring both hands forward. We're going to try it again, but with both hands this time. So right fingertips forward, go forward, round and back. Now right fingertips are faced backwards. Left fingertips forward, forward, up and back with the left hand. Left fingertips facing backwards. Again, any little movements here that might feel good getting into the wrists. I tend to find firmly placing the fingerprints down is really useful for waking up and strengthening in the wrists themselves. We're going to now bring our hands back to normal. Right hand swoops around, left hand swoops around. When we're ready, we're going to find ourselves in a reaching puppy pose. So again, I'm going to scoot a little bit further back on my mat. It will allow us a little bit of time to come off of the wrists, at least in this manner. I'm going to take my left hand first. Outside edge of the left hand is going to be on the mat. And we're going to reach the left fingertips forward, bowing down, looking out towards the right. So finding our reaching puppy, hips still above the knees. Right hand firmly planted and probably got a lot of structural foundation here to try and keep you steady. Press firmly down through the right hand. Draw the left hand back underneath you. Now the other side. Outside of the right hand reaches forward and bow on down, looking out towards the left. Press down through the left hand. Up we come, swapping sides. So we'll do a couple on each side before we find ourselves in a symmetrical version of puppy. So the next time that we are on all fours, we'll find ourselves coming into our symmetrical puppy pose. So symmetrical puppy is going to have both hands walking out at the same time, but more on the palms. The bum is roughly above the knees, bowing the heart and the head down towards the earth. I'm not going to come all the way down because I don't want the mic to muffle, but your forehead will likely be moving in the direction of the earth. And it might be currently that forearms are down. It might be that the palms or the fingertips are down instead. Just notice where your puppy pose leads you to go with the placement of the hands and the forearms. Practicing that present moment awareness and allowing yourself the time to check in with what your preferences are. And finding a wag of the tail behind you. Now, if your forearms aren't planted, we're going to place the forearms to the earth. I do find that I prefer having an interlace of my hands. And we're going to begin to shift the weight forward so that the elbows are more underneath the shoulders. And an option here to extend each leg behind you, curling the toes under, tucking the tailbone, hugging the lower belly up and in. I'm thinking of squeezing the inner thighs together for a forearm plank. An option here to work into the side body by taking yourself into a couple of dips. So keeping both forearms firmly planted, we're going to turn our right hip down towards the ground on the right hand side or in the direction of the earth. Coming back up through center, left hip dips towards the left. Through center, right to right. Left to left. Finding again this like pivoting on the feet, which we've warmed up into. Can you hear me shaking in my voice when we're doing this? And when we're ready, coming through center, knees and hip points down, Sphinx pose. And breathe. Noticing once more what parts of the body are in contact with the earth. Can we press down more through the tops of the feet in some capacity? Do we feel restricted in the efforts of reaching our heart through our upper arms? If that is the case, you can change the layout of the forearms. Maybe we grab opposite elbows. Maybe we move the hands away from forearms being parallel. Maybe a slight little tug of the elbows towards the hip points helps us to feel like we're reaching our heart forward. When we're ready, we'll start to lower ourselves towards the earth. But we're going to take our hands onto fingertips, roughly 10 and 2, forehead to the earth, chin to chest. We're going to inhale to roll our upper body up, oscillating cobra. Exhale to roll ourselves down. And once more doing this for a few rounds to get into the movement. But we may find that instead of just this forward and back, we might come up on one side and then circle round to come down on the other side. So the option to go rogue or go on a different journey rather than your standard forward and back is open to you. Next time we start to move towards the earth, before we get to the bottom, find a place to be slightly uplifted. And we're going to point back with the toes. Think of firmly pressing the hip points down, hugging the lower belly up and in. Can we lift the feet while pointing back and feeling like we're lifting up through the back of the legs? A squeeze of the legs in the direction towards one another may help in this wake up of the muscles. When we're ready, we might keep our hands here, or we might begin to take a finger at a time away from the ground, finding this more like kind of parachute locust pose, with an option to stay here, or we might think of gently guiding the tops of the arms and the palms up towards the sky to squeeze the shoulder blades together and draw the elbows and the arms slightly back to draw the shoulder blades down the back body. Finding a little bit more lift here, still strong through the legs and not looking forward, more so reaching the crown of the head forward to keep a naturally long spine. Inhaling and exhaling, notice how you might move up and down with the ebb and flow of the breath. On our next exhale, we'll release down towards the ground, maybe taking an ear to the hands or the earth and having a little wiggle of the hips. Taking the hands next by the sides of the rib cage, forward to earth, chin to chest. We'll bring ourselves up to all fours. From all fours, we'll transition to a downward facing dog, curling the toes under. Inhale in and exhale the little hover of the knees. It doesn't have to be much of a hover with the knees away from the ground to start to ignite the core. But you might then notice as you start to draw your belly towards the tops of the thighs that the knees begin to lift. Please let them. Allowing your tailbone to draw up and back to the wall or the space behind you. Pushing through the base of the palms, the base of the thumbs. And begin to let the legs straighten, but they don't have to go completely straight. Still thinking belly towards the top of the thighs or that general direction. We'll find our downward facing dog. Maybe staying here for a couple breaths in stillness or taking a pedal out of the feet. And finding a twist here. So I do like to move my feet a little bit closer towards my hands and the feet a bit wider. I'm going to keep my right hand planted, but I'm going to take my left hand towards the outside of the right leg. And here I'm really strong through the arms, trying to pull myself into that V-shaped gap. Hello, on the right hand side. And notice if you started to teeter your weight towards one side and see if you can try and center it so that the weight is equally in both feet. Breathe in and out. Then returning the left hand towards the mat. We're now going to swap without thinking too much about it, taking the right hand towards the outside of the left leg. And again, you may notice here that this side is different. But we're going to try and pull ourselves into that V-shaped gap. Really, really strong right arm. Trying to find the balance between the right and the left leg. Bringing both hands down towards center, and then we'll start to walk our feet up towards our hands to find a forward fold at the front of our mats. I'm going to turn the direction I am on my mat just so that I have a bit more space to show you what we're doing. So finding a forward fold at the top of the mat. Knees can be generously bent. Release the weight of the head down, still strong through the feet, but more relaxed through the upper body. And we'll find some twists here. Option to use your block, or you can hover the hand, have hand on fingertips on the ground, whatever works best for your proportions. So we're really, really going to bend through the knees. The block is out in front, somewhere in the middle, kind of my gaze is down towards the block. The left hand is going to come towards the prop itself. Really, really, really bend into the left knee. And as we begin to peel the right fingertips towards the sky, we begin to straighten a bit more through the right leg. Finding a twist. Next time we exhale, the right hand's going to replace the left, and to the other side. Bend into the right knee. Find the left leg beginning to straighten. Left fingertips towards the sky. We're going to do a few swaps back and forth here. So finding again that dynamic movement. Left hand down, right fingertips up. Meeting the pose for a moment. As we swap side to side. Finding almost this little pedaling action with the legs. Next time we feel we've evened out, we'll release ourselves into our forward fold. Block can go past the front of the mat. And we'll begin to slowly roll ourselves up to standing. Finding ourselves standing at the tops of our mats, maybe rolling the shoulders up, back down, finding feet roughly hip distance apart. Coming into our flow. We'll inhale the arms up towards the sky and exhale the hands towards heart center as we forward fold. Inhaling to find a halfway lift, flat back, and exhaling to hinge and fold palms or fingertips to the ground. Our next inhale, we'll step our right leg back and plant the right knee, maybe coming onto the top of the right foot or keeping the toes curled under if that's more suitable for us. We'll use an inhale to reach the fingertips up towards the sky. And as we settle here in this low lunge variation, we'll take a little moment to check in with our hips. It might be that we need a slightly wider stance to find balance. It might be that we think of curling the tailbone slightly down and hugging the lower belly up to feel that engagement through the front of the right hip. So we don't have to be in this really long line lunge here. We can be in this more upright position, very strong through the legs, and finding that engagement through the right glute to facilitate a stretch or sensation along the front of the right hip. The fingertips currently reaching up. We'll bring the hands down in front of us, acting as if we're pulling a bow and arrow with the left hand. We'll start to peel open towards our left, finding our archer's lunge with the back knee down. We're going to bring the left hand back to meet the right at the front, fingertips up towards the sky. Now we'll find a bit of a sinking in and a back bend. So you might begin to lean forward and then start to reach your gaze a bit higher up towards the sky. Notice the difference here between this pose and where we were when we had the fingertips straight up towards the sky. We'll find that space again, coming out, hugging in, reaching the fingertips up, arms out in front, finding the opening of the bow and arrow archer's lunge again towards the left. A couple more times back and forth like this, fingertips forward, up towards the sky, find the back bend, the stretch, lift up to find engagement and power, arms out in front, peel back and open up. One more time. Sinking down, reaching up, arms forward, opening up to our twist. Back through center, finding a half split. So bum towards the back heel. We'll start to hinge over that front left leg as we begin to turn the toes, the left toes up towards our face. Please note that you can always keep a bend in the left knee. We want to find a little flicking sensation of the tailbone. Again, like we're wagging our tail. That's helping us find this hinge to get the hamstring stretch. Awesome. We'll start to lean back forward into a lunge, curl the back toes under, lift the back knee, find a little bouncy bend to step the right foot next to the left, forward folding at the top of the mat. Inhaling the arms up towards the sky and exhaling the hands through heart center. Inhaling up and exhaling to hinge and fold. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back. Exhale, hinge and fold, palms or fingertips towards the ground. Stepping the left leg back, planting the left knee. Finding an inhale to reach the fingertips up towards the sky. Again, maybe a moment here to adjust through the hips. Finding a bit of engagement in the left glute. A driving of the left hip point forward equally to the drive of the right hip. Fingertips up towards the sky, and then we'll draw them out in front this time, peeling the bow and arrow over towards a twist on the right hand side. So modified archer's lunge to the right. Arms back out in front of you, up towards the sky. Find that little lean forward and maybe a back bend. Hug everything back into center, arms forward, peeling open, twist to the right. A couple more times, arms forward. Find the sinking, the back bend, the lifting and reaching, arms forward, opening up. One more time, your own pace. And when we're ready, finding a half split. So taking the bum back towards the back heel, thinking of lifting the toes towards the face, and bearing in mind again that the front leg does not have to be straight. I like to think of reaching my heart forward rather than the crown of my head, helping to find that hinging sensation. Awesome. Moving into the right foot to find a lunge, to curl the back toes under, lift the back knee, find a little bouncy bend in the back leg like you're like a runner about to sprint forward, step forward and fold at the top of the mat. Inhaling the arms up towards the sky and exhaling hands towards heart center. Adding on a little bit here with some variations of our poses. So we'll inhale the arms up towards the sky and exhale to hinge and fold. Inhaling, halfway lift, flat back. Exhaling, hinge and fold, palms or fingertips towards the ground. This time we're going to step the right leg back, but keep the back knee lifted, finding a high lunge. Now inhaling the fingertips up. Again, maybe finding initially more of that reach up towards the sky, squaring off of the hip points. It might be useful to more lift up the back heel and come onto the ball of the foot so you're driving the right hip point forward and leveling out through the hips. Taking another breath here. Before we take our arms out in front of us, left hand pulling back the bow and arrow, twisting towards the left. And you might find you need to adjust the stance here, so maybe the feet come in a bit closer together. Maybe you bend more into the back knee to find our archer's lunge. A couple of times, coming back through the center, fingertips up. Maybe you find the back bend. Return to that reaching everything up and out, arms forward, archer's lunge. One more time. Up, back bend, back, and archer's lunge. Now we'll find our version of a half split with the back knee lifted. So I like to take my left hand towards my left hip crease, and we're thinking drawing that hip back and hinging and folding over as the back heel begins to lower in the direction of the earth, even if it doesn't touch. You can be hands-free here. You can always use a block or have the fingertips towards the ground. And there's always the option to lift the left toes up towards your face, similar to our half split version we did with the back knee down. The choice is yours. Taking another breath here. And we're going to shift our weight into our left foot. So we'll start to bend into the left knee. I'm actually keeping my belly quite close to the top of my thigh. That may or may not be the case for your anatomy, your body, but maybe give it a go. And we're really, really going to bend into that left knee, but we're going to keep shifting our weight forward, so much so that maybe the back toes lift. Think of that locust pose or oscillating cobra to lift and open up through the front body at the same time as lifting the back foot behind. Maybe still with that generous bend in the knee, but it's okay if the leg wishes to straighten. Option here to straighten the front leg now if the knee was bent. Bending back into the knee so that we can send the right foot to meet the left at the front of the mat. Forward fold. Take a lovely big exhale. Inhaling the arms up towards the sky and exhaling hands to heart center. Inhaling up and exhaling to hinge and fold. Inhaling halfway lift, flat back. And exhaling palms or fingertips towards the ground to step the left leg back and keep the left knee lifted. We're going to find our high lunge, so find your grounding through the feet. Sometimes it takes a little bit of adjustment. And we'll bring our fingertips up towards the sky. Maybe again thinking of that left hip point driving forward and aiding that by lifting up through the back heel, coming more into the ball of the foot and bending into the back knee. Breathing here. Finding the arms out in front, right hand reaches back, bow and arrow, archer's lunge towards your right. Bringing the hands back in line in front, up towards the sky, maybe finding a little bit of a lean and a back bend. Lining yourself back up in center, fingertips up, out in front, peeling and opening, archer's lunge. Coming back up And maybe back bend. One more time. Forward, up and back. Finding that high lunge, maybe a cheeky back bend at the end before we come upright. This time I like to take my right hand to the hip crease and think hips go back, start to hinge and fold over the right leg. Back left heel might move closer towards the ground, finding your modified pyramid. So it might be that the hands come to the leg, the floor, a block. It might be that you keep the hands on the hips, a hands-free practice, your choice. Option to maybe lift the right toes towards the face. Please note again that the front leg does not have to be completely straight. With that being said, we are going to start to bend into the front knee. So really bend into the right knee. Take your weight into the right foot. Keep your weight moving forward. Maybe you keep the belly towards the top of the thigh as long as possible as you begin to lift the left foot away from the ground. And if you're kind of hunched over, looking towards the ground, think of starting to open up your wingspan. So draw those shoulder blades together, widen the collarbones, reaching them forward, finding your back bend in a not a double bent leg lunge, crouching warrior. All the concentration in this pose. Maybe we straighten the leg if it wasn't already straight. Maybe we bend the knee to allow the left foot to come and meet the right at the front of the mat. Forward fold. Inhaling the arms up towards the sky. And exhaling hands through heart center. We're going to take another variation, so gradually kind of building on, working from the ground up and adding on a couple extra postures at the end. And instead of starting in standing or in Tadasana, we're going to find ourselves in a chair pose. So when we're ready, we'll inhale the arms up or out, and exhale, we're going to sit down into an imaginary chair. I quite like to have hands at heart center, but some people like the counterbalance of the arms out in front or having the arms up towards the sky. Taking a moment here to breathe in your chair pose. I tend to find that if I think of driving the knees past the toes so I can't see the toes, it allows me to find a little bit more depth. Equally, imagining like I'm trying to spread or rip the mat in two with the feet helps me find that engagement through the legs. We're going to take our weight into our left foot. And when we're ready, right foot is going to step back. Find your high lunge. Only one of these, reaching the hand forward, maybe lifting the back heel, bending the back leg, so we can pull our bow and arrow back to find our archer's lunge. Coming back forward, hands up, maybe a bit of a back bend. And then finding our hinge and fold modified pyramid pose. So hinge over that left hip. The right heel may come a bit closer towards the ground. When we're ready, we're really going to bend into our right knee. Listen for the change. You might need to grab your block for your right hand. We're going to come into that crouching warrior. So we're going to take the weight into our right foot. But I'm going to place, left foot, pardon me. I'm going to place my right hand on a block. It might be on the floor instead or some other form of ledge. And instead of just keeping the lean forward, heart open, we're going to take our left fingertips in the direction of the sky. So finding a revolved half moon. Now it's easy here for the back leg to get forgotten. Be strong through the back leg, the back toes pointing, the right toes back, thinking of lifting up through the back of the right hamstring. And when we're ready, we're going to start to turn our torso back towards the ground. You might take a bend into the left knee for the transition. We're going to step our right foot back so it plants firmly on the ground, so it'll be a lot closer than it potentially was when we went into crouching warrior. Take your block with you and we'll stand up. We've got our left toes facing forward. Right toes, mine tend to be on a slight angle towards the right, but whatever works best for your hips. Square the hips forward. hinging, hinging, hinging. The right hand might come to a block, prop, maybe it comes to the ground. We're going to find that same twist again, but with both feet grounded. So the left fingertips are going to peel up towards the sky to find our revolved triangle. Again, the gaze can go wherever it needs to go. So it might be more out to the side. It might be up towards the fingertips. Thinking of, like when we did that down dog twist, of keeping the weight in both the front and the back foot. Releasing back to center. You might move the block forward, bend into the front knee, step the right foot forward. Forward fold. Well done, guys. Inhaling the arms up. And exhale, sit down in your chair pose. So we're going to take the weight this time into the right foot, step the left foot back, high lunge. It might be, again, you lift the back heel up a bit more, bend into the back knee, arms out in front, reach the right arm, back opening archer's lunge onto the right. Arms back forward, reach to the sky, maybe a little bit of a back bend. Hinge and fold, modified pyramid pose over the right leg. Taking a moment to get our stance here. Bending into the front right knee, taking the weight into the front right foot. We might get the block prepared over towards the left-hand side, so you've got somewhere to land. We're going to start to lean forward, take the weight forward, take the weight forward. Left hand might plant somewhere on the ground. You might begin to straighten through the right leg as we peel the right fingertips towards the sky. Here we have our revolved half moon. Still trying to keep that engagement and activity through the back leg. Taking another breath. Keeping the hand on the block if we have one. And we'll start to bend slightly into the front knee, just so we can place the left foot down somewhere where the whole foot will plant down on the earth. And we can stand up to have a little readjust. We'll find our revolved triangle. So thinking hips square forward, hinge over that right leg. Left hand plants down on the block. Peel and twist the right fingertips towards the sky. Trying again to think of where the weight is going. Is it just in the front foot? Just in the back? Trying to find a balance between the two. Trying to find a moment to breathe. Bringing our gaze back down towards the ground. Block can go out in front. Weight into the right foot just to step the left foot back. One more cheeky chair pose. Then exhale, hands to heart center to stand. Well done, guys. We're going to make our way down to sitting on our heels because we're going to set up for a cheeky toes pose. You may use a block here if you find that sitting on your heels doesn't quite work for you. Provides a little bit more space. If you decide to use one, we're going to find that we're going to curl all of our toes under, if they'll allow us to. Sitting back to the heels, maybe rolling the shoulders up, back and down. I like to have my palms open. I'll face towards you. Finding ourselves in a toes pose, grounding down. I find that it's very hard not to be present in the moment when you're in a toe squat. Maybe allowing your head to be stacked over the heart, the hips, and the heels. Notice if you're leaning forward or back to lessen the sensation. Allow yourself to be guided by your breath. The video hasn't paused, don't worry. I'm just in the toe squat zone with you all. In case you thought you'd lucked out. Releasing, it might be you lean forward so that you can tap, 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 tap the feet behind you. Another suitable counter stretch is to take your body weight back and lift up the knees to whatever capacity they may want to lift. And we're going to find our way to our backs. Might move the block out the way so I don't kick it. Coming to our wind releasing pose next. So to set up for wind releasing pose, let's find ourselves on our back bodies with our knees bent, soles of the feet to the floor. And we're going to take our right knee in towards our chest to start, maybe grabbing a hold in some capacity with a hand or hands. And we'll extend the left leg long just to act as a bit of a counterbalance or counterweight to allow the sacrum to come flush with the mat. And we'll guide our right knee out towards the side as if it's hugging in towards the right armpit rather than towards the chest. We might use our left hand to move a bit of side body out the way so you can really snuggle and hug the inner right thigh towards the outside of the right hand side of the torso. All the meantime, drawing the knee in the direction of the armpit. So you're drawing down and hugging into the side body. Really strong through the arms. That seems to be a theme today. Hugging in tight and firm against the side body. Acknowledging if there's tightness along the front of the right hip, that's normal, natural. But drawing your attention to that point might mean that you then make efforts to start to release tension there later on in your day or your week. And that present moment awareness coming through. Maybe uncovering intentions for future practices. When we're ready, we'll draw the sole of the left foot back towards the ground, the sole of the right foot to meet it, and we'll take a moment to swap to the other side. So left knee initially in towards the chest, maybe grabbing a hold and extending the right leg long. Taking a moment to take the left knee out towards the side, hovering above the armpit. The right hand might draw away any parts of the body that need to kind of be shimmied so that you can really try and hug the inside of the left thigh towards the outside of the left-hand side of the torso. So you're drawing down and hugging in. Arms very, very, very strong here. Allowing yourself to begin to settle, knowing that the strength in the arms doesn't mean that you can't be still. Be a bit quieter. Strength isn't always loud. When we're ready, you might take the sole of the right foot in, the sole of the left foot on the ground to meet it. An option to hug both knees either in towards the chest or in towards the armpits and take a little rock side to side. Or you can always do circles with the knees. That can be quite nice for the fronts of the hips if they were stiff. The last pose we'll find is a happy baby. So wherever you're at, knees wide as if they're tracking towards the armpits. You can do this one side at a time. If doing both sides at the same time is tricky. So a couple of options with where you grab the leg and you can use a strap. I like to hold the outside of my feet. Sometimes people like to hold their big toe or somewhere in the inside of the leg or the inside of the foot. But grab the foot or ankle as you wish. And similar to before when we had those stompy feet with our bent knees kicking up towards the ceiling, we're going to find that kick up of the soles of the feet towards the ceiling, but the hands are drawing the knees down towards the armpits. And we're thinking of trying to get the sacrum to peel down towards the earth. And taking maybe gentle rock side to side here. It can be quite nice for the thoracic. Again, very strong in our positioning, but coming to the quieter part of our practice. And we're ready. Releasing. Soles of the feet to the ground, option to extend the legs or find another place for your moments of stillness in Shavasana. I'm going to choose constructive rest, the knees nice and wide, feet nice and wide, knees in towards one another, and maybe a hand on the heart and a hand on the belly. Taking some time now to settle into a moment of stillness, a moment of reflection, a moment of awareness. And I'll finish our practice with a quote. 1,000 candles can be lit by a single one, and it doesn't dim the single candle's flame or stop it from flickering. Happiness does not dim for the person who spreads it, so spread your happiness wildly and watch the world light up with joy. Thank you very much for joining me in your homes today. See you next time. Thank you.